I was thinking, why did they name it Licorice Pizza? And then I thought about the characters. And to me, the characters don't go together. And neither does licorice and pizza go together. Wow. But it's also like maybe?
When you
I've never
when
had
you
it.
do put them together, it's like kind of gross. But
But
also
it's
maybe
it's like maybe this is
for
genius.
For a really crazy person, it's like, maybe that works.
Do you guys like Hawaiian pizza, like pineapple pizza?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
So
I'm slightly.
I like pineapple, but I don't know about.
I like it slightly less than I like it.
What?
I wanted to say I'm indifferent, but I'm less than indifferent.
You don't like it very
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
I like sweet and savory mixed together.
Yeah, that's a combo that's
So-
hard for me.
Okay.
My mom will make these stews, and she'll put a lot of like molasses and honey in it, and it'll be like
that's another
chicken
thing.
and grains. Then it'll be
Yeah.
like, this is sweet though, Mom.
Yeah, that's another
This
thing,
is sweet,
though.
Mom.
It's not like horrible, but I'm just like, I'm not crazy about it. Like,
Yeah, I don't love that combo.
I like sweet and
I don't know
salty.
how to describe it. Maybe sweet and salty.
I like
don't know.
savory salty. Savory
Well-
sweet is a tough one.
We have
First big spoiler of the movie.
Wait,
is
first
it
big
has
spoiler of
nothing to do with licorice or pizza.
They
Luke
don't eat
is
pizza
not
once.
loving that. His
They do
face
not.
was upset.
They don't eat pizza once. They could have
No.
easily eaten pizza once in that movie.
Would have been so easy.
It was always
no, but it makes you
hamburgers.
think about why is it named Licorice Pizza?
Should we say, like, spoilers throughout this?
Spoilers.
So many
That's
spoilers.
that's assumed.
All right.
If you're coming,
There's not a lot to spoil, but whatever.
Okay, that was a little harsh.
Because nothing happened. Yeah.
Spoilers.
There's no
Well,
licorice pizza.
can-
What did you think it meant, Jamin? You were saying that maybe there's another meaning.
Oh, should I get into that?
Yeah.
Right away?
Well, are you saying what he thought he meant before he watched it or after?
Okay, so before I watched it, I thought there was going to be pizza in there for sure.
Yeah.
And then right before we watched it, Mike had seen it. He's like, by the way, there's no licorice or pizza in there. I was like, oh.
Just don't want you to get your hopes up.
And part of me was like, I don't know. I don't know why I would care about that. But then it also kind of, I went into the movie thinking, oh, there's not going to be any pizza or licorice in it.
What's even the point of watching this movie?
like you're like a little disappointed.
I just was thinking about it. I don't know if I was disappointed
It's just
or
so
not.
bold, and then it doesn't follow through.
Right. It's such a weird name that it's like, oh well, that must have purpose.
Yeah.
You know. And
But
then
now I feel
I mean,
like
if it was
it's
like a
even
subtle
deeper
word.
than.
so that's what I'm getting at. What is deeper about
Well,
the name?
Okay.
Should we
yeah.
get into the story and then come back to?
Oh,
the
okay.
time?
No, I'll just go
Okay,
for it.
No, just go for it.
No.
What afterwards, Gracie and I were reflecting on it as we're walking out of the theater, and we're thinking,
Praying about it.
Lord, did we make a good decision watching this movie? No. I was thinking, why did they name it Licorice Pizza? And then I thought about the characters. And to
Yeah.
me, the characters don't go together. And neither does licorice and pizza go together.
Wow.
But it's also like maybe?
When you
I've never
when you
had
do put them together, it's like kind of gross, but
But
also
it's
maybe
It's like, maybe this is
for
genius.
a really crazy person, it's like maybe that works.
Yeah.
It's a really
That's
it's a
it.
really pleasant like visual. Like, it's like a really pleasant thought for some reason. Like the words
Kind of
together.
a gross thought, but
No. If
also-
you don't like think about taste or anything, it
Uh-huh.
it looks nice. At
Yeah.
least like the picture is nice in my mind.
yeah, I'd
Of
say
those words.
Of
I
like
bet
little
probably
pieces
I don't
of
know.
licorice on pizza.
No, not
probably
like
like 65% of it is like this, just a fun sounding title for
Yeah.
a movie.
It is fun sounding, but
It could be.
So you're not actually thinking about licorice physically being on pizza.
No.
That's not what you mean.
No,
you
like-
mean when you see the words written out, you're like,
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like it's nice.
it evokes a certain
yeah,
feeling.
exactly.
For some reason, it feels nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just because I already knew it was attached to like a 70s film.
I think it like I
It
didn't.
does feel nice.
I don't think I knew that it was attached to a 70s film going in, but like after the film, I see how well that title fits it. Like what it evokes, the feeling that it evokes, fits really well with what the movie was about.
Yeah.
Not so much licorice and pizza.
I do like that analysis though of the two.
Yeah.
Not going together.
Yeah,
That's probably good.
Probably what it is.
That's what I
That
felt like the
makes-
whole movie was.
That makes
just,
the most sense out of the story, kind of.
just like character study of two characters that are pretty different, but a little similar.
Okay. Yeah. Well, before we go further, can I share a little bit about my experience?
Please do. I've talked to
Did you make it in time?
I've talked to Jamin slightly about this. I've barely talked to Graci, and then I haven't talked to you at all.
Yeah,
so
I came in this morning. I didn't want to talk with you guys at all about it because I wanted it
I
all
could
to be
feel you
fresh.
avoiding it. I could feel it.
You're like,
I
I
wanted to be-
saw the movie last night. I'm not gonna say anything.
Don't ask me about it.
Don't ask me about it. So I left your guys' place last night, and the movie was scheduled for 6:55, and I left like a little after. I think I left at your place like 7, and
7:05.
it was like a 7 to 10 minute drive, and I was like, okay, there's probably going to be like 20 minutes of previews and stuff. So
Right.
like, but I was like kind of nervous. It's like, will I make it there for the beginning? And so I got there. I kind of rushed in, and to my disappointment, it wasn't still in previews. And I
Oh no,
I
you
was
missed the
thrown-
beginning.
yeah, I missed the beginning, but I don't know how much at the beginning, and I don't know what I missed. And
Oh,
I don't know
no.
I don't know how critical it is. So, the point at which I came into the theater was when Gary first takes Alana out on a date, and they're in that restaurant. And
you
he's-
missed a lot.
Really?
That is
How much?
Well,
not a. I wouldn't say a lot, but you missed a whole scene,
a good
and it was.
7
It's
minutes.
a beautiful
5 to
first
7.
scene, I must say.
So okay, so let's set
I was-
let's set the
this is
stage.
my worst,
So,
greatest fear.
It's
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
the
it's all
first
our
scene
fault.
definitely sets up the whole. Like, I feel like you needed the first scene.
You-
I know.
you see a nice follow shot. Like I'm pretty sure it's in most of the scene is like one.
One
It's a-
almost
yeah.
all one take.
A few, maybe a few shots, but it's basically one take.
It's
and
very pretty.
she's walking. Yeah, it's just like it's like
Okay.
at the high school. She's
Describe it
walking.
to me.
She's walking through. It's outside, and our main character's walking alone. I mean, you don't know who she is yet.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, he kind of enters frame. Like Gary enters frame and starts just interacting with her right away, like just so confidently and
And
so
they don't
just
know each
like-
other at all at
they,
this point.
They don't, and he like introduces himself, and he's basically like, you can tell he's like into her like
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
he
you-
kind of says it.
Opening scene. I missed it. What happened?
Do you remember what he says first off?
I feel like he says something like, I think he immediately asked her, "Do you want? Can I take you out to dinner or something?" I think it.
It's the first thing he says.
Yeah.
He just kind of comes into frame, but you're not sure their dynamic at this point. I'm thinking they're both high schoolers.
Right. I was also.
Yeah, I
thinking
thought
that.
I thought she was maybe a senior in high school. He was more like a sophomore, freshman, or something.
She has a very youthful look,
Yeah.
and you start to realize like the camera just follows them through like walking around outside and
it's super tight. Like the whole. It's this
Medium
it's
tight
tracking
shot,
like
just-
steady cam shot, and it's super tight the whole time.
It's
Yeah.
great, and it's just like moving with them, and he'll stop and he just basically pestering her to like hang out with him,
And she's really annoyed.
and she's just and she's like how she is for the whole movie. She's just like trying to act like she doesn't
Yeah.
appreciate it in some way, but right off the bat you are kind of like, I mean, he's being a little bit like.
Oh yeah, he's super ballsy. He's just
Yeah.
the
It's
most
like
annoying.
It's a little annoying. You find it?
Oh, I thought I did. Never mind.
That sounded like Tom Waits, who's also in
That
the
was-
movie,
that was David Bowie.
which got me very excited. Oh, that's not Tom Waits. Okay.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Oh, he was so good in it. He's probably my favorite, like, artist, like, solo artist, and he's so amazing that, like, in everything he acts in as well. But, the camera kind of follows them from outside to inside into the gymnasium, and they're setting up like photos.
Yeah.
And he walks in and he gets his photo taken.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize
She's working with the photo company.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah,
taking
they
all the
reference that a few times, and I was like trying to understand.
yeah, so that scene you start realizing, oh, she doesn't know him at all.
Mm-hmm.
She works for like as a photographer or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just taking pictures of these kids who are high schoolers.
Yeah.
But they do such a good job of establishing who the characters are in that dialogue that I was impressed right away because, dialogue's my favorite thing. It's like it either makes or breaks it. And right away I was like, oh, they're doing such a good job of like giving you just enough information, but not like, not giving you like this over the top exposition. It's like just enough. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
And she ends up going out with him. Obviously, that's the next scene. But
that's, okay. Yeah.
One thing that was really interesting about that scene is their ages is established almost immediately.
Yeah.
And I thought she was lying. I was like, for sure she's, maybe just out of high school, maybe a senior in high school, and in the way in which they're like going back and forth in their conversation, she could easily say, "Oh, I'm 25. I can't go out with you." Like trying to just like shut him down. It doesn't, obviously, but I thought that was really clever, the way in which the dialogue was written, and of course,
you don't know about her character yet, so you don't know like if she's just like saying things to make herself look more or whatever, or because she's immature or whatever. But she definitely gives off a vibe of like I'm not sure about it.
Well, it works because so he's 15 and she's 25 in the beginning.
I think that she's like, you're so young, like I couldn't go out with you.
But he's been an actor, a child actor, and clearly seen more of the world and probably made more money and probably had more experiences than her. At the time he's 15. And she is kind of a young 25, where she's kind of like aimless and
still at home.
She still lives at home, and she, has this sort of like dead-end job she doesn't even really like. And so there's this interesting thing where they sort of meet in the middle personality-wise, where she's kind of a young 25, he's kind of an old 15. But right away you're sort of just like, okay. And I'm going into this movie knowing literally that Paul Thomas Anderson directed it, and that's it. I didn't watch a trailer. I didn't even know it was about these two characters. I didn't know what it was.
Wow.
So I'm just like along for the ride. And I'm thinking,
that's awesome.
This guy's gonna, I just kept feeling like this guy is gonna go too far. Like I was like, this guy's gonna stalk her. He's gonna get into some shady stuff. Like I'm thinking it's gonna go Boogie Nights. Like it's gonna get crazy.
Yeah.
Like, especially that scene where he calls her and pretends to be Lance and then doesn't say anything on the phone.
Yeah, so she's dating that kid, and he lies and say that it's so good.
Yeah.
He lies and says that it's the guy she's dating.
Yeah.
And then he just sits on the phone in silence.
Yeah.
He just wanted to see.
That was such an emotional moment, though.
It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
He just wanted to see what her reaction was when she knew it was him. And he's so bummed because she's like, "Hi, Lance." And he's just like,
I think,
like he's crushed that she even is excited to talk to this guy.
And maybe he also wanted to hear what her voice would sound like to be that guy receiving that affection on the other end.
I think also when she realizes who it is actually on the phone, that's so much deeper emotion than what she was feeling when she answered the phone originally. Like you could feel the tension. Oh my gosh, there's so much tension through the phone. Of like just desire, like you could feel her desire in like this weird, twisted way, which was really interesting.
Yeah,
but
it's so interesting, like that you want them. I did. Yeah. I wanted them to get together.
But going back to was it your point about like not going in? Well, you're going in expecting something because of who you've known the director to be
what he's done before,
But it says a lot about him too, that like he still produces something that's completely unexpected.
He's doing something unexpected in the opposite way now.
Yeah.
He's gone so far making things that are unexpected in a way that I mean, There Will Be Blood is probably his best known, and in my opinion, his best movie.
Yeah.
But it's unexpected because it's called There Will Be Blood. It's got the most horrific, scary, intense soundtrack ever. And it's actually way more subtle and chill and like patient than you're expecting. I expected like, oh, it's going to be this like bloody Western. When I saw the trailer and the ads and like There Will Be Blood, I was like, this is going to be epic.
There's definitely like some tension and
no, there is, and there will be blood. You know, like there is some blood.
Yeah,
but it's not like this crazy violent thing. I feel like that was unexpected. Boogie Nights is about like the porn industry and gets really like disturbing, and it has like some violence and some like you know, a lot more to say than just like, hey, look, it's like 70s porn stuff.
And
like,
Magnolia is
all over the place.
Definitely goes wild. Like
all over the place, yeah.
So unexpected.
Punch Drunk Love, like that turns in. There's like thriller moments in that where like he saves her. So like he sets things up in a way where every movie it's like, oh, this is gonna get like. I would kept being like,
and like he has so many
until,
characters where the characters are so strong that you don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah,
like,
so unpredictable.
What?
I don't know if I'd necessarily agree that it was very unexpected. The Licorice Pizza. I mean,
it was unexpected for me in the sense that like I was expecting it to go into thriller territory.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Where were the moments that you thought it was going to be very different than what it was?
Well, I mean, I just didn't think that it would stay very grounded. I thought it was going to start to get like dramatized. Like I thought they would take it from a movie about these two characters sort of meeting and trying to figure life out and becoming entrepreneurs. I felt like that would be the setup. And then I thought that it would get into some sort of crazy, dramatic, over-the-top territory of some kind, where some character would snap or they would run into some shady characters. It's like, it's Hollywood in the 70s, like I'm thinking, and it was reminding me of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, same.
And I was
reminded me
like,
of that too.
yeah.
When is it going to get
I thought
crazy?
the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, because the whole thing with Bradley Cooper's character.
Yeah.
I thought that
that
was
moment,
get crazy.
I was like, here we go.
And
this is going into insane.
It had
insane
almost
territory.
no consequences, no payoff for the rest of the story.
Which was a little, I guess, thinking back on it now, like it was a little disappointing, but
I
also
was disappointed. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know. That's
I
just
don't-
like the whole movie, though.
So
every scene just feels like
one
that.
thing conversation that we had was I was trying to put into words how those scenes made me feel. Like it felt like you're like sitting with your grandpa or something, and he's telling you all these like for a few weeks, and you're like, it's just like stories of his childhood, and he's just like, and then one day I went down the road and then there was Bradley Cooper, and there's it's just like all these disjointed moments in someone's life, and that's what it felt like to me. And then Mike, you told me that it's actually based on someone's true experiences.
Yeah, apparently Paul Thomas Anderson's friend grew up in Hollywood, and and he had like a mattress company, and he like was a former child actor who kind of like grows out of his cuteness and doesn't have work anymore, and he just becomes an entrepreneur, and he starts telling these stories to him over drinks. And so Paul Thomas Anderson, I think, based a lot of this on that, and like knowing that, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
Because it is such a grounded, realistic depiction of a bizarre relationship, but it's definitely not like your run-of-the-mill love story or your average Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Even like this is probably his most reserved, but in some ways the most complex, because there's so much that happens. You're introduced to so many different characters and scenarios that any one of those he could have took that and ran with it. But he doesn't. It just because it's like it's there, and then it's gone, and then we're on to the next thing. But the through line is their interaction and their their relationship is getting more
Their
and
friendship
complex and deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I didn't really know it was a love story
And
until
just
the
kinda
last
messy,
until the last line.
Hmm.
I didn't. It didn't register to me like I'm watching a love story.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not a thriller or
Kinda
whatever.
Similar thing to Phantom Thread almost. It's like a twisted kind of love story.
Yeah.
What were you specifically disappointed about? Like,
Well, I was just talking specifically about that thing with Bradley Cooper, and there were so many little vignettes and scenes,
yeah,
and it felt like almost none of them had consequences outside of that chapter of the story.
right.
They didn't like the whole thing with her Sean Penn's character, like on her motorbike. That was a great like scene, but then it just felt like a lot of pieces just kind of thrown together. I mean, that makes a lot of sense what you're saying about him getting all these stories from his friend, and I was so torn, like almost probably halfway through the film, and then until afterwards, like as I was thinking and debating in my mind, reflecting on like how I felt about it. I was thinking the whole time about structure, like story structure, how important it is, like how much I could enjoy a film with that didn't have a very well executed structure but had like some feeling to it. And I was like on the verge of, I felt like I kept going back and forth between like, yeah, but what's it about, or like, and being frustrated with the lack of structure, consequences, like sacrifice, character development, and well, there's character development, but I was go that way between kind of be disappointed with that, and then the other way of like kind of making sense of it, and like, well, this is also just like how life is as well. Like maybe that's what he's saying, is like life is kind of disjointed and just like a cobbled string of events sometimes that don't always make sense.
Yeah.
But also I'm like, part of me is like, that was just kind of lazy. Like I felt like even if it is like a bunch of stories from his friend that he's being told, like that doesn't necessarily, just because they're true, doesn't necessarily make it a good story. You know, like there's a certain amount of craft. I think that could have taken it further or given me something more to latch on to. The one moment where I felt like there was some payoff, and I felt like it made a little bit of sense of everything, was at the end when they're running towards each other, and there's just a really subtle quick cuts between all the times that they've been running with or towards each other.
Yeah.
And that was a cool visual way to tell the story. And I felt the emotion in that moment. I was like, oh, this is like their story of like constantly running at and running away from each other. And just
that's
like,
what the whole movie is.
Yeah.
I think that moment was him saying, you've basically been watching this unconventional love story of like all the different things that had to happen to these two characters for them to accept that they love each other and come together. It's so random.
Yeah.
Like for her, you get to see a new side of her with that whole Bradley Cooper situation. She got to see a side of him where he's like, he kept his cool under pressure. Right. And he sees a whole new side of her where like she got him out of a basically life or death situation.
Yeah, and she had incredible like resolve and focus in that moment.
That whole scene where she's backing the truck down the hill and there's just no music and it's just like it all plays in real time it was so weird and awesome, and like I was so pulled in. Yeah. But because of that, I know what you mean, where you're like, I want like there to be a resolve with Bradley Cooper's character, and there also is that like cutaway scene with Bradley Cooper like smashing these cars or something like at the end of the movie, and you never saw what that was.
Yeah, I was like, what was that? That would be awesome. Like I want that shown.
Right, and that I think was played in the trailer too.
Yeah.
I didn't see the trailer ahead of time, so that was I was glad I didn't. But I totally would understand why anyone would watch this movie and say, nothing happened, it was boring.
Yeah.
What was the point of that? And like, for me, I was struggling with that at moments, but then sort of just had to accept. Like I accepted like this isn't gonna be like that type of movie. This isn't gonna be like this overly dramatic movie. And when I accepted that, I was like, I fell in love with it that much more, because then you just have these nice little scenes and chapters, and you're introduced to these characters, and you just get to enjoy it for what it is. But then it doesn't just end with no purpose. It ends with like them coming together, and like that cutaway scene where you're showing all the times that she's been running towards him. Like when he got arrested, like that scene kind of feels really random, but she like. You see that like she really cares about him. Like she's running full tilt like to try to like get him out of this situation, and she has to console him, and he's so in shock, and like
that scene was great when he gets out and they just like run together, like that tracking shot that was like kind of tight and in slow motion.
Lots of tight really tracking shots. Cinematography wise, this movie is incredible. It's so well.
I don't think it was as incredible as some of his past movies.
I agree.
As like Phantom
Thread is unbelievable.
And
it's
Punch
a
Drunk Love.
Totally different style.
It like
he did, the 70s style
definitely,
is tapped in.
But it just it didn't like quite like just make me feel that like magic that some of his other films have with the film and the cinematography.
Really? Oh, that to me like that was what was giving it magic, because what was happening on screen. Yeah, like what they were doing is like so simple, or like kind of like if you read it in a script, I'd be like, why are we even shooting this? Yeah. You know, like they're just they're talking about mattresses or something. Yeah. And they're just outside, but like the camera will like, glide from one character to the next, and like have you get a little piece of this conversation, a little piece of that conversation, and you feel kind of like you're there observing and like, oh, what's going on? Oh, what's over here? Yeah. Oh, they will follow this character, and then we'll come back over here, and you're like, to me, it felt so lively and fun, and it was like the way it was being put together, not what was. Yeah.
It was. There were some really great shots, and it was like above average, like still very skillfully done. I just didn't think it was quite at the same level of some of the visuals.
It's so funny.
Some of his other films.
I feel like I'm like jumping back and forth on like whose side am I on? But on the cinematography side, it's definitely conflicted feelings for me, because there's like moments where I felt like it was too simple. It reminded me of like Uncut Gems, where it's just like this long, like 100 millimeter or 85 millimeter lens on a Steadicam, but I like the Steadicam shots a lot. But then when it was just like statics, I felt like it was kind of boring, just like over the shoulder stuff, just like run of the mill. And so I don't know. I was like, there's moments where I was like, yeah, this is beautiful, and then other moments I'm like, eh.
It seems to be of a combination of the style of Phantom Thread and then some of his older films. Like it's definitely a combination, definitely, and that could be why it's not as strong. Maybe. Yeah.
You mean visual? Well,
visually,
I got Boogie Nights vibes.
Yeah.
Like,
I got Boogie vibes.
I got Boogie vibes.
I wanted to boogie.
But I do think like in terms of cinematography and the way in which the story, the story thread, like I left feeling like PTA did exactly what he wanted to do, and he didn't want to leave us with anything more than what he gave us. Like that was the whole point of it. Like this is what he wanted to. It wasn't like a form of weakness to him. It was like, this is just what I want to put out, Like,
yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean I have to like what he.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
To be fair, like I have a really weird like confliction with him as a director and his films, because There Will Be Blood is like so good, and Boogie Nights is so good, and I love Punch Drunk Love, and then I didn't even finish Inherent Vice.
I haven't seen it.
I started it and was just like, I'm not into this. Like I was with a friend and we were like an hour in, and we were like, do you get what's happening? He's like, nope. I'm like, I'm not gonna finish this right now. And I never went back to it, and I this movie makes me want to, because it is like 70s like aimless period piece, and it's just about like a stoner trying to like crack a case or something, but he just gets distracted and like gets stoned and like meets random characters and has random conversations, and like it feels like it's going nowhere. But now that I've seen this, I'm like, well, maybe I'll get it if I watch the whole movie. I don't know. And then The Master, I feel like I will like it at this point, but when I watched it years ago, I got nothing from it. I was just like, it was really
I watched it a couple years ago and I loved it.
You loved it?
I loved it, yeah.
I need
Which
to
movie?
The Master.
Oh, The Master.
I need to watch it again because
there's like the performances in there are fantastic.
Joaquin Phoenix is like absolutely insane.
There's nothing
Philip
he
Seymour
does
Hoffman.
wrong. He doesn't do anything wrong.
No, he's amazing.
I had one more thought about the ending scene, them running together. That as I watched, like I mentioned, that was probably one of my favorite scenes. That was like the closest thing that it came to like making the whole film feel like a cohesive story and stuff, make it feel like I got a sense of their journey and it was all worth it. But the thing that bugged me was like I felt like the moment like of reunion, like it wasn't really earned, or like they're like running so dramatically. I'm like, why are they both running like so sudden, like to see each other, like just in terms of what preceded that, like so she had that whole incident with her boss, the mayor, goes to the restaurant with his like partner, and they try to stage something where she looks like his girlfriend, takes him home, and then there's like a small like emotional moment with that guy, and then for some reason out of that she just feels this need to go and find
for some reason, because she saw that this guy who she's holding up on a pedestal, the politician who she's been like slaving away for, has a secret like love interest, and he's gay, and he doesn't want to put it into like the public eye. She sees that,
she sees like something that she idolized, like this. She's always idolizing something, I think, throughout the film. Like she's trying to find something of meaning in everything that she does, and that's often a person. Like a person that she can like fully respect, I guess, or find meaning from. And then she finds that like this final person that she's tried to do that with is not what she expected him to be. Like is seeing like, oh, he's a fallen person too, you know.
He has his own love story too. Like he has
a secret love
his
story.
way, and like
that's unconventional.
It almost seemed like to me, it's like she felt like, oh, like if he can love how he wants to love, I could love who I actually love, and then stop pretending.
She walks that guy's boyfriend home, and he says something like, they're all jerks. Like,
he's like, boyfriends, huh?
And she goes in that moment, she's like, and realizes, oh my god, like, I love him,
that scene.
And I need to let myself be free to love him as this guy is, you know, and I don't want to like screw this up, kind of thing. And she has that realization and runs to him, and he's chasing after her because it's like, hey, I'm having my grand opening of this arcade, like you're the one person I'm doing this for, because the whole story is basically them trying to out impress each other.
I guess I would agree with you, Luke, for him.
That was a really good explanation of her side, but I didn't feel it as much for it. Was like, she didn't, because they had similar issues like that throughout the whole film.
At least
where,
he
like,
did. Like, it was kind of similar. I
don't know if like it was communicated that he was doing this whole thing for her, because they had that whole fight scene, and he was just like, he didn't really care. He was just like, okay, pinballs are legal now, and I want to make some money. And he had that. There wasn't any.
But he like calls her sister, and then her sister's like, she's gonna come, and then like literally he's anxiously waiting at the door. But I didn't angry at everybody.
I didn't feel that as much, because that's just like who he is throughout the whole film. He's always just like nagging and like, hey, you want to go on a date? Like hey, you want to?
I feel like his character development wasn't as strong as hers was. In general.
I would definitely agree with that.
I would say she's the main character.
More. I felt more distanced from him, and like I didn't care about him as much as I did about her. Like she's more humanized.
That's interesting.
It just felt like
I felt like I was frustrated by her more, even though he was really annoying. I was frustrated that she just wanted a boyfriend, and she was just flirting with every guy that like came into her path. And I'm like, what do you want? Like, what? Like,
I mean, being more connected to her, being more connected to her doesn't mean that she wasn't like, she was so annoying. Like she was so frustrating.
Totally. But you can tell there are moments where just like her character, you can feel like there's some developments or some shifts that happen. You don't necessarily feel that as much with him.
I feel like he matured. I think the scene where he could have like taken advantage of her and he doesn't is part of that.
That was
I think that moment was him being like he's all talk. You know, but earlier in the movie you would be convinced that he would do anything to just like touch her or kiss her,
Like
or
the-
he's just so
like the
needy and
scene-
just whiny, you know.
Like the scene when he's like, can I see your breasts?
Yeah.
And he would have touched them. Like, so
Yeah.
that is like a big
Yeah.
Well, it's never
A
enough.
big,
As
like-
soon as she shows him, he's like, "Can I touch him?"
now.
Yeah.
It's like right away.
Yeah.
And she's just
Just
like, "Get
slap
out of here," you know.
It just felt like I wanted just like one more like crisis at the end that would have like been more of a reason to push them back towards each other.
Yeah, maybe
I
for
do.
him.
I really like. I think that is a satisfying explanation of her.
Yeah.
with that scene with that guy's boyfriend.
That was one part where I got like a little teary eyed because or at least where we were talking about it, and it was like that's the first point in the movie that you kind of felt the emotion of it. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, it definitely was like a point where I felt, yeah, just like reconnected to, like, because I definitely felt like kind of a bystander for a lot of it. Just like both of these characters are pretty annoying. Like, I want to see them get together. They're never gonna like work long term, but this is for the movie's sake. I'd like to see them get together at the end.
Yeah.
And then
I just didn't know if
It
that's
was
what the movie was
going to be.
doing.
Yeah.
I was like, I want that, but I don't know if that's the point.
Yeah.
You could describe the whole story as just the whole thing is just these two people constantly trying to make each other jealous. Like
Yeah.
it was nothing but
Yeah.
an endless string of like other love interests that they're just like in front of, like, see me with this person? Oh, but you see me with this person? Oh, you see me with this person?
Yeah.
And,
And
like,
if they would
that's
just
what-
stop
that's
being
the whole-
immature
That's what
and
people
like
do.
actually have conversation and
Yeah.
just like be like, but
Well,
That-
but he's,
that part of
he's
that-
trying through the whole thing, and she's like shutting him down. But as soon as he stops, she misses it. She wants it. You know, it's
yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
I was enjoying it. I enjoy his writing so much. Like, I just enjoy characters sitting down and talking where you feel like they're actual characters. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
to me, anytime a movie does that, I don't even need to know the backstory or situation. I just enjoy being in that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was laughing like most of the movie. And
Right.
and there was only a few other people in the theater with me and Ben was laughing for some of it. But I was like, I felt like the comedy was lost on some people. And I felt like the
Yeah.
comedy
Yeah.
was
For sure.
just
No, there's
For
some
sure.
great comedy.
the
in
comedy
there.
is just character based though.
There
It's
were
not,
so-
you know.
There were some.
I definitely laughed at some moments.
Yeah, it was really funny.
I mean, the guy with the Japanese wife.
Oh my gosh,
The wives.
That
way
was
too
the
cringe.
I
that made me
That's too
cringe
much.
so bad.
Oh, I lost my mind.
I just
laughing at
wanted,
those times.
I couldn't. I
That was
covered
on the
my face
verge.
in the theater.
Yeah,
I
was
couldn't
like-
believe he put that in the movie.
yeah, that was on the verge of like
In this political climate,
that, and I thought Bradley Cooper's character, like that whole long spiel, he didn't feel like a real person. Like it felt like kind of how you talk about like this feels like someone writing a script. It was like, let me create this crazy, weird character
Oh,
who's gonna say
man.
these things.
I
So
laughed
I
the
loved
most
him
at
so
him.
much.
he was like funny, but I feel like in other movies like Magnolia is so good about creating these really wacky characters who are they're so out there, but they feel like this could be a real person and who like say these things. Like Tom Cruise's character in Magnolia is just like absolutely the things he says are insane, but you're like, I could totally see how this could be a real person, and then you see his story and explains how, but
I mean,
know,
Bradley
man.
if it was
Cooper
a
in there,
movie
I was
about
like, I
Bradley
don't-
Cooper, you would have gotten that because you just
well,
needed more backstory.
but not even that.
but-
Like it felt like I was watching Bradley Cooper trying to play a crazy character. I didn't get the sense of
Really?
like, oh, who's this guy? Like, why is he?
I thought he's.
It's
I think he's
insane.
amazing. I was. That was one of my favorite parts of
Yeah,
the movie.
same
I thought
here.
he was
Yeah.
like. I thought he acted like leagues around everyone else. Honestly, like he was like so.
Maybe-
He's so menacing, and I mean I've met people who are on serious drugs like that. Like the dude, he's not in his right mind. Like he's saying
Yeah.
crazy stuff, but
I
he's
think
like
yeah.
he's
Yeah.
he's like coked out, and he's like making real threats, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I don't know if he's capable of this. Like that's another reason I thought the movie was gonna like go off the rails, and there's
Yeah.
gonna be,
Yeah.
like
There were a lot of underlying little things in there though, like we
Like
just touched on, like
commentary, social commentary.
yeah, social commentary with the Japanese wives,
Yeah.
and there's like you get
The
a
racism
sense-
and the sexism.
yeah, like you get this huge sense of sexism in there, and it's so I don't know. Like it kind of is a slow burn. Like you don't notice it right away, but you're.
I mean, I noticed
like
it when her boss slaps her ass in the beginning.
Well, yeah, but
You
like
missed that scene.
You missed that. Yeah, that was, and she just kind of was like just rolls her eyes. It's just like, wow. Like,
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
acknowledgement. Just
ignoring.
yeah,
and-
I guess that is true. Like that's a pretty. I guess the other things throughout the movie, though, just how he carries that theme through it.
That was
is
one other
really
reason
interesting.
why I thought that maybe it was gonna go like off the walls crazy at the end. Was there was gonna be something like traumatic that happened, like when she
Yeah.
gets the call from the senator
Yeah.
or whatever, that he's getting the candidate, and he's like, "Hey, come to dinner."
Yeah.
She's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, this better not go."
That's the thing about the movie is the whole time you're like you're like feeling like anything could happen, and it's just like and like
Yeah.
I want to see it again now that I know what it is, because I feel like I was enjoying every single scene, but I also had this like angst of like what if like
Yeah.
somebody's like
Oh, yeah.
you know, and it's just like it
100%.
feels like it's gonna get crazy, and like
Yeah.
but then when it doesn't, I
it's
definitely
actually relieving.
I actually like. I'm like, good on him, because it's not. He didn't take advantage of all the movie things. Like it's just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
subtle.
Maybe that's part of what I'm feeling. It's like I felt like I just wanted it felt like it was all building up.
There just
and
weren't
I
any
wanted
cliches.
I
I
wanted,
wanted some cliches.
No, not cliches. I just wanted one. It's like a story needs some sort of explosion.
Yeah.
Some moment
Yeah.
where a major crisis throws everything out of control.
and then there's
Yeah.
like consequences for it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
there
see
was,
what you're saying.
Yeah. So
It was
that's all.
it's
I'm glad it
unconventional.
That's
didn't
all I
happen.
wanted. I just
I'm
wanted
glad
that.
it didn't happen.
It's
honestly.
unconventional. Yeah, I'm glad, but I totally understand what you're saying, Luke,
Yeah.
because I was feeling that at certain moments of the movie, and I was like, I wonder how this is going to be received. Like, I think people might hate this, and I'm
Oh, yeah.
enjoying it so much.
yeah.
But I still don't know what's going to happen. And okay, and then I'm realizing like my mind's wandering. I got to pay attention to the movie again. But like that kept happening in my mind as I'm watching it. Like, what
Same.
is
I had the
this?
same experience. Yep.
Of like your mind wandering.
Yeah. No. Of me knowing that people were not going to receive it well.
It
And
seems
but-
like it's got good reviews, but I don't know what people
I
think.
feel like it's because of the Haim sisters are in it, because they're a really popular band.
Yeah. I thought they were great. They were one of my
Oh,
favorite parts.
Yeah, they were
Everything that happened
fantastic.
with Alana and like her household and stuff, I thought was awesome.
She's incredible.
the
Articles. I'm just clicking on a random article about the
What
movie.
does it say?
Our audience is smart enough to handle ambiguity.
oh, shut up.
And then it goes,
That is so
critics of Licorice Pizza think the film could normalize anti-Asian mockery.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
no.
I
Oh my
Get
gosh.
out
Watch
of
the
here, the
movie.
Atlantic.
I thought that it
Frickin'
was so interesting seeing how it's like we've actually come a long ways. Like you would never.
Like he's displaying this because we know how
And
like
it's-
awful it is.
It's so terrible. Like hindsight's 2020. Now everyone looks at it. It's like, yeah, that's pretty rude. Like that's pretty racist. That's pretty sexist.
Yeah,
And at
that's-
that time, obviously, it wasn't considered that way, or maybe it
Yeah.
was, but it just no one said anything.
the worry of the worry that people won't get certain things, and they will think that like anything portrayed in a movie is
Will
then
happen.
is encouraging it. Just is so disrespectful to like every human being. Like watching, it's just like you're too stupid to figure it out. that this stuff happened. You're gonna watch it and just copy it. You stupid.
What
Like-
if people watch Psycho and they think it's okay to kill people in the shower?
It's I hate that type of like rhetoric so much. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
I gotta read more. I mean, I didn't read any interview with him. Now I'm really interested in this article because it has actual interviews with Paul Thomas Anderson. Like that's just what's so funny is it's like you can put stuff like this in your movie and then people think that that's like your view.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
So you're a racist against
This is-
Asian people, huh?
This is a time in history. This is like a period piece in a sense.
It is.
and
like-
you're writing realistic characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. What are you going to make a movie about the 70s and like everything was hunky dory and no one had any issues with
And
each
it's
other?
two parts in the movie. Granted, it's the funniest moments in the movie, and it's funny because you know it's self-aware, It's funny because if you were watching that in a movie from the 70s and they did that thinking that it wasn't weird or there wasn't anything
You'd
strange
feel it
about
a lot
you'd be
more.
like,
Yeah.
oh God. Because like I have had that experience where you watch an old movie and there's something in it where you're like, oh, they weren't seeing that for
Didn't
being
think that was
wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're like, oh man, but even that, people are trying to almost get rid of that, like, oh, don't watch these movies anymore, or boycott these movies, or this is problematic. And it's like, no, you need that. You need to see those movies to see that we're not there anymore, and to see and to understand history and what makes it different. And like, it doesn't automatically mean that this should just be like deleted from everyone's memory.
It's like character progression. Like you don't, once the character is like at a healthier place, you don't just delete the memory of the character being in the worst place that they were before. Yeah. Like us as a culture, whatever.
Well, yeah, it's like going through something traumatic as an individual. Like, do you want to? Maybe you do want to delete that from your
Some
memory.
people, that's their.
But then you wouldn't have any sort of like growth, or you wouldn't be the same person. It's like it's like the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind plot. Where they try to delete the former lovers from their brain.
Right.
Yeah. And it has all these other consequences, and it's not that simple. And they delete them, and then they end up falling in love again all over. It's like
it's like with people who deal with have had like traumatic things happen in their life, and then the trauma stunts their development, their brain development.
Yeah.
As long as it's not dealt with.
If it's not, and it's painful to deal with it, and that's why it's stuffed down. But that thing, like trauma, actually stunts your mental growth.
Yeah.
And like that's seen in young kids or girls who are like sexually not harassed, but actually abused. There's a stunting of their like. So there's definitely like a need for acknowledgement and a need for space that's safe, to process things and to actually verbalize and then like get through something.
Yeah. There's like a place on the other side. I don't know.
And
why.
so that applies to movies too.
I don't know why. Yeah. Right. Like such a. It's like a whole nother
It's
topic,
interesting that people are zeroing in on that, because I thought like when I saw it, I was like, oh, obviously this makes me uncomfortable, and I thought it was funny as well. Just the way it was portrayed as like being ridiculous. But I don't think it didn't seem to me like it was really a central part of the story, or even that like it was a major part of what he wanted to do with the movie, was like have some commentary on this. It just felt like part of the background of like, here's the crazy world that people lived in the 70s.
Yeah.
Well, the problem that I thought people would have with it, and maybe they do, I haven't looked into this, is the age gap.
Yeah.
I feel like the movie goes into like 2 years or so. So maybe it's like 15 to 17.
I have no idea.
He's
I
still
actually-
underage.
No, because
he
scene
turned
with
16.
So it's
Oh,
a year.
really?
So it's a year.
Yeah. Maybe.
when the scene with Bradley Cooper, she says she's 25.
It like
Doesn't she
literally.
just- I thought she
like,
said she's
not very
27.
much time passes.
Oh wait, yeah.
She
Yeah.
says I'm 25.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
she does
you're
that.
right.
So I don't know what that meant. I don't know if she was lying.
When she was talking to Bradley Cooper, he was
She-
also super intimidating.
Or was she lying about being older because she wanted to impress him?
Yeah.
That's
Like
possible.
it could be a number of
I
different
don't know.
things.
So let's say she's 25 to 26
Yeah.
and he's 15 or 16. Either way,
There's a big.
it's
gap.
not the
It's a 10-year.
It's
Not
an-
so good.
in the props
Yeah.
a little bit, right? I
Well,
guess it's it's weird. If this was the other way around, there'd be no debate. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone would be like, yeah, she's 15, bro. You creep. You're 25. Get out of here.
Yeah.
But in the movie, she's 25. She's kind of a young 25. He's kind of a mature 15.
Well,
You
and he
kinda-
made the first move as well. Like he's straight up pursuing her.
He's pursuing her really hard, but
Yeah.
like you could have a 15-year-old girl pursue a 25-year-old man really,
and that would
really
be
intensely.
and
And it's like
Yeah.
that would not be acceptable.
it would be like really rough. So it's interesting. I was thinking about it just like within myself. Like, is it just because I'm a guy that I'm accepting this in a movie? Because 15-year-old me would probably be like, well, you know what I mean? But it's like, it make it? I personally don't think it's the same I do think it is slightly different if the roles were reversed.
Yeah.
I do. I don't think it's the exact same. But is that like a total double standard? And I was curious what your thoughts were on that, Gracie. As a woman watching this, is it totally creepy?
It doesn't feel as creepy as it's this kind of the same. I have the same feelings about it because if it were reversed, I'd be like, no way. Like,
Yeah, like
this is a different story.
They
than
wouldn't have made the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of had hoped that this movie would happen within like over 2 years. To like when they get together, he's 18. Our problems are solved, but
It's
he's
legal.
literally 16 years old at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I think
And-
it's a part of it is also like the times like the 70s were such a weird time, like in terms of like
Yeah.
sexual revolution and stuff. and
That's
people were
true.
just-
That's true.
that-
Plus, just
Well, she knew that he was too young. Like, she says it.
Like
Yeah.
he is too young.
He's too young.
Yes.
Like, but is he? That's the thing. Like, she's
that's
on
why
the
she's so
surface.
hesitant for so long, right? I
Yeah.
mean, at least one of the reasons she doesn't respect
Yeah.
him fully,
Yeah.
but
so- yeah.
she doesn't think that that he's at her level, at
Right.
least in terms of age. But what I thought made it acceptable and a really interesting story is their emotional age and maturity.
Yeah.
Because
Which is
when you
kind of
look
the
at
point
their
of it, I guess.
maturity, like they're really actually at the same level.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If anything, she's working for him a lot of the time.
Yeah. And there are some times where because he does, like, because he's like this like businessman and has all the experience, like you were saying, he probably has more experience than her. You start to feel like you don't feel like he's 15 the whole time. You feel like, oh, he's like, this businessman or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there are moments where he does things you're like, that is so immature, or like,
So
and you tell,
childish.
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, he is just 15. But another one of the weird like things that's, I don't know, it kind of took me out of it sometimes, but then it also it was kind of funny and charming the rest of the time, was like just like his businessman persona and how he just goes to, I didn't understand like how he just goes to this restaurant and they're like, oh, Mr. Valentine, like I'm like, why are these people like bowing down to this 15-year-old kid?
I
And,
mean,
like,
child star.
yeah,
He's a
like,
child star.
Yeah.
He has had businesses with
He
his
carries
mom.
himself
Yeah.
really
His-
well.
That restaurant was like in partnership with his mom's business.
Yeah.
So they're in a way working for his mom, working for him.
Yeah.
because they're like business.
I
him
thought
and his
he
mom are
owned it.
business
Like I
partners.
thought they owned the restaurant.
Yeah, maybe they do.
They're-
Didn't he say that?
I
I
feel
think
like
that maybe. Yeah, maybe.
There are
that.
times where it kind of like bordered onto like this almost like a dream of like every 15, not every, but like a
Yeah.
15-year-old kid, like,
Yeah.
oh, if I could walk into a restaurant, they'd give me a seat, I could order a martini and like have
It feels
like,
that way.
the women-
It feels like a fantasy. I didn't take it as like super face value. Like it does
Yeah.
feel like kind of like a fantasy, or like
yeah,
somebody
I
telling,
don't mean that in a bad
telling
way.
stories of their life over drinks. It
Yeah.
feels that way. And like objectively, is it like wrong for like a 25-year-old woman to date a 15-year-old like male? It's like, well, according to the law, it is. According to like what do I think about it personally is like, I don't know. It's like this
Maybe-
weird thing where I'm like, once you see that whole story played out, you're like,
Yeah.
it's
But-
like a comment.
yeah.
It just must be a commentary on what is emotional maturity. Like, what is maturity?
I mean,
Yeah.
there is a
What
law.
yeah, there is a
and,
law. Like,
And
but are you just magically mature when you're 18 to date
No.
like a 30-year-old? Because that's happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there's,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, age doesn't always define maturity.
and 18-year-olds get taken advantage of too.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah.
It's like there's got to be a line. Obviously, you can't just be like France.
does France not have it?
No, theirs is like
They just
theirs
recently
is
banned
is
incest,
Is
though.
15.
Just recently.
They what?
Just recently.
They had to
They
be
just
they had to be
banned that you
told to
can't-
ban that.
Yeah, they can't. They just banned that you can't date or marry your cousins. Recently.
They didn't like
They didn't do that
like before recently. It was okay legally.
They're doing that.
They do that. Gotta love. gotta love the
gotta
French.
love
it is France. You don't
No,
know
like
what to-
their age of consent is 15.
Yeah.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Same as drinking age.
Why you do this?
Wait. Maybe
Eh.
maybe it's 16. Not that makes a huge difference.
No, I mean, yeah, in reality, it's wrong.
I mean,
Like it should not happen. They should wait 2 years until he is
at least to
18
be
years
a
old.
law-abiding citizen.
Yeah, like
Yeah. Well, part of I think why we feel that way through the stories because you're experiencing the story and you kind of feel like a kid when you're watching. You feel like you're him, like this 15-year-old kid going through it.
Mhm.
And no 15-year-old kid would say to his friend who like had a 25-year-old girlfriend, like, "Oh, this isn't right, dude." Just be like,
or like
"Oh,
be
No, you'd be like,
interested in.
tight, bro. Like,
way to go." Yeah, so you're brought down like you're in his childhood with him.
I know.
It's
so
like not
weird.
thinking through everything.
Yeah, because as soon as you said that, I'm like, that sounds like a parent saying that, but it's the right thing.
Well,
But that's not what we want.
if we
in
didn't
the
have
film.
that law, this is gonna start getting into.
I
a
don't know.
whole
If,
different
I
thing.
don't know.
You
I
guys
don't know
want
if
to talk
we-
about the plot? I mean, the pacing. I did have a couple thoughts about the pacing.
Okay, yeah, I was about to go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, maybe we should.
No, yours makes more sense.
Okay, so I just was wondering how you guys felt about how much of it you were like, how many of those vignettes were you really invested in versus like, you know, just because I felt myself in the beginning like pretty invested, like pretty interested in the story. And then definitely like my interest level was like pretty much like this
Yeah.
through the middle, especially when it got to like them selling the mattresses and stuff. I was like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
pretty boring. Not really
There
boring,
was like
but
a
it was just
full
like,
3-minute scene that was just them loading mattresses into a truck. And I
yeah.
was like, I love the soundtrack and the feel, but I was also like, this is.
I was definitely, so it was like this, and then as soon as they I think it was when they loaded the mattresses and went to Bradley Cooper's, I just went
Yeah.
Yeah,
right back
I
up,
think-
and that
I
pulled
think
me
I had
like
the
it
same-
sucked me back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering like how many, because and then the other scene that was so captivating was the Sean Penn and Tom Yates.
Tom Waits.
Tom Waits.
That was so wild. I thought she
That
was
was a
gonna
fantastic
Die. I thought she
scene.
was gonna die.
Yeah, there's so many good standalone things. I mean, that montage you're talking about where you're like your interest is going down, like I remember thinking that I was amazed that I was interested because I'm
Yeah.
like plot wise, nothing is saying, "Hey, there's like this setup and I hope they get to do the thing."
Right, right.
Yeah.
There's no plot device used. It's just like, "Hey, they're doing this now."
Yeah.
I think it's just. I think.
Yeah,
it's
you
just
don't
to
know
get to
where
know
that
the
ends.
characters
Oh,
more.
I just remembered
you,
the other.
what
Like,
about the character?
That scene just seems to be like you getting to like know the characters more. to
Yeah,
me.
I felt like the
Or
way it
like
was
the progression of their relationship in a sense.
Yeah, like to me, it was showing like a level of collaboration that they're now entrepreneurs together,
Yeah.
and I liked that. But I also just liked the way it was being filmed. Like I was just enjoying.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm enjoying the way this is all put together. Where I became that much more impressed with the movie. Where I was like, there's not any reason for this to be like super intriguing. Like because like
Yeah.
on paper it's so just like whatever, but he's created this world with these characters that are alive now, that and like the way he was shooting it, I was just like, I'm in. But yeah. I definitely did feel like overall I had a similar journey where I was like, I'm like really into it, and I'm kind of like, this is pretty good. And
And-
I was waiting a little bit, and then like towards
Yeah.
the end, I was like, oh, this is amazing again. And then it was sort of drifting again towards the end, and then the very ending, I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like I really liked it.
The other thing about that was like, well, I don't hate I really liked that vignette style, you know, like almost like these
It's very
book
episodic.
chapters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Episodic, yeah. And I enjoyed that. I thought that it was a really clever way of like, we don't see movies like this too often. It kind of has like an old style.
Yeah.
But it just makes sense that some of them are going to be more interesting than others.
It's very similar to how he the rest of his films though. He does that a lot, and
Like
the rest
Magnolia
Magnolia is like an
Magnolia?
extreme case of that. But even
I thought that it was different though, because it's like there's all these different stories that are intertwined. And
yeah,
like,
but it's all these like
Still vignettes.
these vignettes of like some specific like two things coming together, a situation, a crossing of like paths that is like this like an incident that like is just like an interesting little story on its own.
I thought that for me, my Magnolia watching experience was more like puzzle pieces and trying to see where things connected.
Yeah.
And with, Pineapple Pizza, you just don't, it's just two people. So you're just like waiting. Like,
no, but I think the form is still similar.
Okay.
It's just like to a different extent.
Yeah.
But that, it kind of brought up as I was thinking about it on the drive home and like still debating whether I really liked the movie or trying to decide what I thought about it. I was just thinking about like, that idea of like story structure, and because I was trying to like figure out where the points of like a 3-act structure were in this film.
In this movie,
if they were there.
Yeah.
So the question would be, do you think you could identify a 3-act structure in it, at least the basic like makings of one, and do you think that or what are your views on 3-act structure and the necessity of it in a movie, and whether it can be a good story when it doesn't adhere to that, or if it plays around with it, or like I have my thoughts, but
I think I can for some reason I can't do this for the first and second act, but I think that the third act started when after the box driving incident and she goes and gets a job for working for the governor, the guy that's running for mayor or governor. I feel like that kind of starts the third act of her character, which is, I think we kind of decided that this movie is actually about her, not about Gary. And so I feel like that's kind of where the third act would start.
Yeah, because the biggest shift there is she like all of a sudden out of nowhere is like, I want to change the world, and like goes into this.
And she's very conflicted about the fact that she's hanging out with Gary and his friends.
Yeah.
Like she's like, we almost died. They're all teenagers.
Yeah.
Like 10 years younger than me. What the hell am I doing?
Well, she asks her friend or her sister or
Her
something,
sister,
like,
yeah.
do you think it's weird that I hang out with like Gary and her friend? And she's just like, no.
And she's like, well, I think so.
Yeah, she's like, I think it's weird.
Yeah. No, if you look at it mostly as her story, I think you can find a structure to it. Because there's definitely like there's
just
like
subtle.
there's definitely like a high point where they're both like working together, they're making all this money and stuff, and then there's
separate
a descent from there. That'd be interesting to go through and try to map out like map out like the different points.
I feel like the inciting incident actually happens really early on, because it's just them meeting. And then her choosing to go on the date.
Yeah.
Like, because there's not really a setup of their normal lives before.
Yeah.
You know what? You just, you know what I mean? Like they just get, you get little teases of like, I was, I'm a child actor and I act, and then, my mom and I do this stuff, and we get little like snippets of like, you can picture what his life was, and then her life,
I think
seeing her home life.
Yeah. Well, I think it actually might start when she goes as his chaperone. Because that's like really when.
Well, and that's when she meets
connected.
her boyfriend. She meets her boyfriend, and then he comes back to the house, and he says he's an atheist, and his parents get so mad.
That was a great
She's
scene.
the devout Jews,
And she goes out
like,
what does your penis look like?
Show it to me.
the way
That
that
was
they
so
cut
funny.
that together, where they're just like whip panning over him. It's
Yeah,
just
that was
like
a
a
great
normal penis. Like so, it's so funny.
Circumcised, you're a Jew. That was so funny.
Yeah, that feels like a turning point for her. I don't know the exact moments that I would say would be like six plot points or 3-act structure or anything, but I definitely think it's in there with those major chapters of like ending with after chaperoning, because she was like excited to do that at first. It felt like getting her out of her old life and her routine, but then the next chapter is her feeling like, maybe I can work with this kid and maybe he'll help me, you know, maybe go places. And then she's realizing like, oh, this is not actually meaningful to me. What's meaningful to me is changing the world after that. Yeah, like the whole incident with the trucks. It's like it's her journey of like finding herself and then realizing that like it's okay to, I think, like be honest with where she's at, and happens to be that she's in love with an underage kid, and, and it's you know,
and it's a happy ending,
and it's a beautiful thing somehow.
I almost wonder, I don't know if this necessarily fits, but the whole, because there's it's not as commonly talked about, but some people will say like that there's like the call to action of like the hero, like an inciting incident, and then there's like the hero's reluctance at that first call, and maybe like a refusal of the call at first.
Yeah, there's definitely that.
Yeah, refusal of the call, and then there's some sort of incident that actually turns them around, and then they accept kind of the journey, and then they go on it. I wonder if her have that whole section with her with Lance, that other boyfriend, is like her reluctance kind of and hesitating to like get into a relationship with him, and then that like phone call is like some sort of inciting incident, and then that brings her back, and then like because she doesn't come back to him until he's at that weird like teenage fair thing and still selling and starts selling those mattresses, right?
When he gets arrested.
Yeah. Oh, then
that's a big deal.
That's a big moment.
Yeah. She was like, no way am I letting this kid get hurt.
There's definitely like, there's some clear plot points. And I think to your earlier point, just about almost feeling like it's just random, like a hodgepodge of little vignette stories. I felt like every scene was revealing aspects of the characters and their motives. Like, just in subtle ways, but you know, there's the obvious ones, like chasing after him, the police car, and then telling him to get out. And it's like, that's a very obvious display that she, like, you know, has feelings for him and appreciates him, even if it's not like a love.
Yeah.
No, I didn't think it was like a hodgepodge, like just random events cobbled together.
It feels like that, but when you start dissecting, you're like, no, it is intentional. It just it's not doing it in a way that we're used to seeing. And the only thing where I thought that style or structure was lacking a little bit was that there aren't many consequences from each of those scenes that carry over to other parts of the story.
That is such an interesting aspect of it.
The like the scene with Sean Penn, like it's like you saying you think she's gonna die, and it like feels so, the stakes are so high, and then it's like bloop, bloop, she falls off the back of the motorcycle and like nothing happens to her and they carry on.
I was like, I love that though. It felt so much like a real, like someone telling a real story. And it's like, I was about to go and then I fell off, and thankfully I didn't break my bones.
I think it was PTA's way of saying like, this isn't about what's happening, it's about them. You know, like because like you hear all of this craziness going on in the background in that scene, but you just see them. That's all true. That you're
just seeing the looks they're giving each other.
And as they're walking away, like there's chaos going on around them, and it's just, we're focused on them, you know.
And like when every one of these scenes happens, it's like they're the only person each other has. Like these like pivotal moments in their life, him getting arrested or her falling off the bike and everything, like nobody cares except for, you know, Gary, except for her. It's like and I think he did a great job of showing the in-between moments. That is what makes this like so believable and like meaningful, is like you get these little cutaway shots of just like reactions or like hyper close-ups of just like her looking at him, and you just feel her thoughts and like what she's processing. Like those are the pivotal little sequences that like are missing so many times in movies, of just those like quiet moments or like those in-between things that like cutaways, or like someone else is talking and our main character is like listening, but there's so much else going on in their eyes, and they're like, or they're wandering, and the camera stays on her to show like she's there but not really, like, you know what I mean? And like here's why, and like you get those little moments, and that made me just like, I was like, okay, I get what's going on, like I have felt like this, you know, and it's just like, it's crazy.
That was powerful.
I felt like one other did you have another thought?
I don't know. I feel like we should wrap soon. I have a lot of thoughts, but
Well, yeah, I just thought that one other aspect of just that feeling of it being so like real and just kind of a almost like this true story was the casting as well. Like it just so played into this feeling of like you're not seeing these huge recognizable names as the two main characters. And it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go see Timothy Chalamet.
sure.
But it's like these two kind of non-actors or really early actors
Yeah.
giving these incredible heartfelt performances in these situations and scenes that feel very un-Hollywood in a way.
Yeah. In Hollywood.
Yeah. And so it just like I felt like everything was adding up. He's trying to like bring all of these ingredients together to give you this a kind of a movie, an experience that you don't get in other movies. That's just like slice of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A Licorice Pizza slice of life.
You want to know what I thought was the best performance of the whole movie?
Tell me.
That casting lady that they go see.
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
Yeah. She was.
Oh my God.
That
She was
woman.
amazing.
She's really good.
That was a
It's
great
just
scene.
like mentions her Jewish nose and like
I was like,
she's like
no,
you're that
the
the part
cringe.
where she's like you got fight in you. She's like
You're
you're
like
like
a
a
dog.
you come in here pretend like you're all pretty but you're a pit bull or something. It's like I love it. I like just that close up of her face for those
so
lines.
You don't know
and the
what to
changes
expect.
her
So
face goes
funny.
through. That was
That-
so
I think,
captivating.
yeah.
I was
Yep.
like, that might be the best part of the whole movie.
Oh my
That was
god.
so good.
Do you fence?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
You play sports?
It's so good. Will you do nude scenes? Yeah. No.
Yeah. It's like you're gonna lose out on work. She was so fun. Well, I did one last thought I had about like story structure and stuff. Well, it was interesting to me that like because I was trying to think, like I said, reflect on if I could find the structure, but it's just interesting that like just a little bit, couple minutes of reflecting on it, you can immediately start to
Yeah.
identify
Yeah.
where the pieces are. And it just like reaffirms for me because I was struggling. I was like, because I'm really like a believer in that structure is there and like
Yeah.
in all stories and behind like so much meaning of how we create things. And some people aren't as much and you'd be like, oh, but what about this movie's so good? And it doesn't look like that at all. But it's just like an affirmation of like, if you really dive into even the things that seem like they break the conventions, like there's that structure underneath everything.
Yeah.
Like even in college, my professor, he had us watch, what's the Christopher Nolan film where everything's in revert? Like
Memento.
Memento. And he's like, if you break this down, like it is like the 3-act story structure, like reversed. And it's like,
Oh,
it's
that's wild.
perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
like-
crazy.
It just blew my mind.
It's the best. That movie's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I would say this movie's like 8 out of 10 for me. I
Yeah.
really liked it. You're kind of like yes and no. But what would you give it a rating or would you recommend it? Or?
I would just give it slightly less, maybe like 7.5. But it was like,
That's still
every-
that's still really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
yeah, it's everything like that's all because of the craft, like you're talking about the writing of the dialogue, the acting, the camera, everything. I was like, this is just like obviously a man at the height of his directing craft
Yeah.
power.
He knows how to
Yeah.
make.
But
he
it
knows
just
how
like
make a
to
movie.
take it to that next level for me, it has to like transcend to some other like really meaningful, really emotional. I really care about the characters and like felt like I had something to grasp onto the whole story, and it's like wasn't quite there.
Sure. Yeah. I did have that, but I totally understand why somebody wouldn't. I feel like, yeah. What do you think?
I don't know. It's when I walked out, I thought probably a 7 because there was like definitely moments where I was like losing interest. I didn't, emotionally connect with the characters, but I really respected his attempt to tell a story about two somewhat disconnected characters and very emotionally kind of immature characters, and see if you can make a story that's compelling with them.
Yeah. Well,
So
if you're saying 7, then I gotta say 6 because I feel I liked it.
I wasn't done with my rating.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
That's what I was feeling right immediately after, and then I think that over the next day of reflecting it and talking about it with Graci, it came up with me, and I liked it more. Like the more I reflect about it and see it as a whole thing, I like it more.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's somewhere between a 7 and an 8 for me.
Yeah.
Maybe a 7.8.
I would say having talked with you guys about it now, it has bumped it up a little bit
Yeah.
for me. I would have said lower when I was first coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd say the same. Like somewhere between a 7.5 and an 8.
And if you want an in-depth discussion about film ratings and putting numbers and stars to films, then go check out our other episode. We'll put it here in the description. We'll put it here.
I think
Which
yeah.
episode?
I think I'm one of those people that doesn't have to have a really strong story structure. Like I love ambiguity so much.
So you
as
can't. That article is wrong. You can handle the ambiguity.
No, I can't.
You can handle the ambiguity.
I'm the same way. Well, I know you're a big Richard Linklater fan. Like the Before series and everything. Like they feel really aimless. They're just like two people talking.
Oh, but
There's structure there, but it is very just like I like that sort of just like I like the experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so interesting that you would like the Richard Linklater movies and feel like they have more structure than
Before Sunrise,
Licorice Pizza.
The Before series. Yeah, definitely.
Like Before Sunrise has some.
I mean,
fairly clear.
You just care so much about those characters in those films. Anyways,
that's another video for another time.
Well, let us know if this is a super
we missed the
creepy,
mark.
inappropriate movie, or if you liked it. And
we'll see you
Good
next
night.
time.
And if you want to be on the podcast, you can email us at
info@votaryfilms.com.
Cody@votaryfilms.com.
Is Cody still over there? He's been loving listening to this, hasn't he?
No,
Did we just
his
spoil
face
the
has
whole?
been-
Did we-
I know themes and stuff that
I know
are
themes
in
and
it
stuff
that I didn't
that
know
I
anything about it, but I have been very careful not to listen to
very careful not to listen to.
I'd be interested.
I'm just
to hear
repeating
what
what
you
Cody's been saying into the mic, so you guys know.
thought. It was like a weird echo.
Yeah. I think he liked it. All right. Bye, everybody.
it. 7.6 for me, dog.